On over here. How's everybody doing tonight? All right. Well, we're going to get the show going pretty quick here. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff tonight, including his like vinyl making a comeback and other cool stuff with my co-host. And we're gonna do some favorite picks tonight, and some cool stories, some great stuff to come in your way tonight. So share that out there. We're in the chat room as well, so feel free to make a comment in the chat room there and say hi and hello to us. And we're glad you're joining us this evening. Without further ado, here is my co-hostess. He's the host with the most. It's Tom Jokic from the podcast Famous Lost Words. Yes. You know, it was funny. I remember going to the earliest Kiss concerts, right?
Yeah.
Going to the earliest Kiss concerts, and it goes, the hottest band in the land, Kiss, right? And then towards the end of the career, as they headed, way up into stardom, it was the hottest band in the world.
Yes.
That changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. They were the hottest band in the land back in the 70s. Anyway.
I love them. From the word go, man.
Little trivia there.
Yeah.
1974, Old London Arena.
Yeah. Kitchen Memorial Auditorium for me. 77.
Rock and roll all night, party every day. 1974, with my feet up against the stage while Gene Simmons spit blood on me. True story.
I know.
And we're looking up at the confetti bombs going off, going, this is so fucking cool.
How are you, Ken?
Man. I'm great, man.
Good.
What kind of night you having? Or you got some stuff you want to talk about tonight?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I want to talk about fake bands, as in imposter bands.
Fake bands.
So we'll put this in the category of music news to start with. So the band Earth, Wind and Fire, who I saw in 2015, they did a show alongside Chicago. So imagine the horns on that show, right? Earth, Wind and Fire and Chicago sharing the stage. And I think Earth, Wind and Fire went on first and then Chicago came on, but they played together a lot. They were amazing. But anyway, they're suing another band called Earth, Wind and Fire for trademark infringement and for deceiving fans.
Oh, wow.
So there's currently two bands. So the real Earth, Wind and Fire want to go on tour in August. And that's the real version featuring Verdine White, who was with the band from the beginning, whose brother Maurice White, founded the band. It was mostly based on his vision. And Philip Bailey, remember the guy who did Easy Lover with Phil Collins? Great song, great vocal. Philip Bailey's an amazing vocalist. And he was the star of the show when I saw Earth, Wind and Fire about 8 years ago. Anyway, so they're up against the Earth, Wind and Fire Legacy Reunion, which is made up basically of guys who used to play with Earth, Wind and Fire like as session musicians. So they're not really Earth, Wind and Fire guys, right?
Okay, so is anybody from the Earth, Wind and Fire band that's being sued, are any of them original members of the band?
No.
Oh, they're not.
Not the band that's being sued, not the fake band. They're only quote unquote former members, but they're not original members, and they're unknown guys. Like nobody even knows kind of who they are. But the way they're advertising like with the EWF logo and all that. And so people are expecting to go there and see Verdine White, the bass player.
Yeah.
And
are they any good? Are they any good?
The real ones?
No, the fake ones.
Oh, I have no idea. I saw the real ones. But anyway, so they're receiving complaints because their tickets go on sale. I think so the real Earth, Wind and Fire is trying to shut it down right away because their tickets for their new tour are going to be going on sale, I think, early next week. So that's the problem, and they're going on tour in this fall with Lionel Richie. So hopefully they'll get all that settled before they hit the road. But I want to tell you about other fake bands, and I think maybe I've told you this story before, Ken. In 1974, Fleetwood Mac went on tour with a fake Fleetwood Mac band, and this is why. This is before Lindsay and Mick and Stevie Nicks joined. Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks,
Okay.
because there was once again, as always, there was a soap opera situation within Fleetwood Mac where Mick Fleetwood's wife was sleeping with guitarist Bob Weston. Okay, not a big
Oh
name
my
in the band,
God.
but Mick's wife, Jenny, sleeping with Bob Weston. Everybody's mad at
That's
everybody,
messy. That's
right?
messy.
And Bob Weston is a friend of Mick's, and Bob
Yikes.
Weston is with Mick's wife. Okay,
Bet they're not
so
friends anymore.
there's such a blowout that everybody went back to England, but it's a tour, right? They still had a tour to finish, so their management sent out a substitute band to fill the remaining dates, and it caused such a huge scandal with promoters and everybody else and fans that it almost ruined the Fleetwood Mac name forever. And it wasn't until a few months later that Stevie and Lindsay joined that their fortunes started to change again. But
Right.
I love a fake wood Mac. I love that.
Fake Wood Mac. Oh my
Okay,
God. I remember Fleetwood Mac before they were Fleetwood Mac. Well, they were a different Fleetwood Mac.
right.
They played a very different style of music
Yeah,
before Stevie
with
Nicks.
Peter Green. Yeah, those songs
Yeah,
are great.
it was
Those songs are great.
some of the earlier stuff was really good.
Yeah, yeah. They
Yeah,
also have a song from around the time of this soap opera I'm telling you about, called "Hypnotized," which is amazing.
right.
Really great groove to it, and I love that kind of music. I love it. Okay, two more. 1969. The Zombies have a huge hit with the song "Time of the Season." But by the time they actually release the song and it goes to number one, they've broken up. So some promoter creates a fake zombies
Fake
and they go on
zombies.
TV and they actually lip sync one of the zombies songs on television pretending to be the zombies.
No shit.
That's awesome.
Oh
Love
my
that
God.
story. And
That's
apparently that
crazy.
footage still survives. So I actually looked at it today, but I don't know what the real zombies look like. Like I wouldn't recognize Rod Argent and Colin Blunstone, if you
Right.
put them in a police lineup, right? So I don't know if it's them, but they look different from the band that did "She's Not There" in the like originally. So it's wild. Okay, this is a really weird one. This last one. So there was a band in the late 1930s and early 40s and early 50s that were called the Ink Spots, a great vocal group. Okay, they had a lot of hits. African American band, I believe, and they had a lot of hits. And but the original members didn't make much money, just like today because they were getting ripped off. They broke up in 1954. Ken, the Ink Spots broke up in 1954, but various former members of the group tried to claim the name the Ink Spots, and they started touring. That Then more ink spots formed. Soon the United States and all of North America was covered in ink spots, okay? And in the late 60s, there were so many groups touring under that name that a judge threw up his hands and basically said, "Screw it. We're putting the name in the public domain. There's no way of settling this," which
Yeah,
effectively meant that anybody, including you and I,
right.
can tour under the name the Ink Spots. And that's exactly what happened. There was so many, like there are so many former members of the quote unquote Ink Spots.
So
So there you go.
is that where the polka dot pattern came from? Oh man, I have to tell you, think about how that stuff happens, and
Yeah,
it makes you wonder. I mean, there's some things around band names, and maybe this is a time to talk about that a little bit. Um, when a band decides on a name,
yeah,
they need to make sure that they own everything associated with that name,
right,
because if they don't, then somebody can come along and say, "Well, you're not trademarked, you're not branded."
right.
Right?
Yeah,
And so branding your account is really, really important, or branding your brand. um, because it's important protecting you from, you know, people that are unscrupulous, and there's a lot of them
Sure.
out there.
Sure. And a lot of bands had to change their names, like a lot of British bands, right? There was Bush, the Gavin Rossdale band, which I think had to become Bush X when they were over here,
That's
that
right.
grunge band,
That's right.
because of the was it Dominic Troiano that was in a band called Bush
Yep.
here? Yeah.
Yep.
And
And
then
it's interesting.
there was the Beat in England who had to change their name to the English Beat.
Now, here's an interesting thing that I found, and I don't know, if that's going to change in the independent world or not. So, if you're an independent musician or artist, I want to hear from you on this particular one because I have an opinion about it, and I'm gonna mention it here. So, I I haven't seen anyone get into that sort of an argument about in name ownership. And there's a lot of independent bands you'll find on Spotify and iTunes that carry the same name.
Oh, really?
Yes. Oh yeah,
Okay.
there's duplicates out there. There's duplicates of names, and I
Yeah.
found that some bands have duplicates out there. And how you do that is you're trying to find them on Facebook or you're trying to find them on YouTube or whatever, and all of a sudden you find a duplicate indie band with the same name.
Right. I'm writing this down, Kenny, because I think this is a topic we can build out from with a little bit more research.
Well, here's an interesting thing because I used to front for a band. I was the front man for a cover band called Kickback,
Right.
and we were pretty popular local act, and we played shows and stuff like that, and we put on a real rock and roll show when we played, right? A lot of all the musicians in the band were all seasoned musicians, so everybody put on a really good show.
Right.
Um, Anyways, years later, we dropped. Sorry, prior to that, I was in a band called Tripwire. It was a three-piece band, and we always played downtown London, Ontario.
Right.
And I dropped that name back in the '90s when the band folded, right?
Right.
And I found four young guys on YouTube that had the name Tripwire.
Oh.
And so I sent them a scan of my business cards for the band because we had business cards and everything, man, for our band. And we used to stick them all over the bars when we played our business cards, right? And people would hire us to play private parties.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, we gave up that name. Well, I found these four young guys and I sent them a note saying, "Hey, you guys, this used to be the name of my band, right? I think it's really cool what you're doing." Well, they were so nice. They reached back out to me and said, "Oh man, we didn't know the name was taken," right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Well, it kind of was," but I said that band has not been functional since the mid '90s. So you know what? If you want that name, it's yours.
Right. That's amazing. Good
Because
for
I'm
them.
the
Good for
only
you.
guy that I knew that could lay claim to that because we actually trademarked the name.
Oh.
And the guy that came up with the name for the band, his name's Doug Vardy.
Yeah.
And there was a day when Rush opened for the Doug Vardy band.
Oh, that's great.
Piece of trivia for you.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Anyway, so we're gonna shift gears now.
Yep. We want to
What
talk
do we
about
go?
vinyl?
Let's talk about vinyl.
All
Oh,
right. So,
oh, oh, oh. Look at that big Zeppelin there.
yeah. Um, I when I used to work at Chum FM back in the and around the time where we went like all digital, they got rid of all of their vinyl. But here's a funny thing. So, for example, when hang on a second here, when uh, let's see here. Okay, so they would play the hell out of Born in the USA, right? They'd play the hell out of this album.
Right.
So much so, and this is on vinyl. And so they would play the album so much that they would have to have multiple copies of the album. And so every once in a while they'd switch out they'd switch out the vinyl, and they'd end up basically with an empty sleeve. Okay,
Right.
so the radio station not only had a whole bunch of copies of the album, but they had a whole bunch of empty sleeves because they would throw the old vinyl out. So so I snapped up all of the empty sleeves. So sometimes when I DJ, I like paper the place with these empty sleeves, and it's great decor, right? Like you can
Right.
you're covering the place with that and that and that and
I have album covers on the
yeah,
wall of my studio
yeah, yeah. It's a
because
great way to do it.
yeah, because I love the album art so much that I thought I wanted to put it up on my wall.
Yeah, me
Right.
too. I
I
love
mean,
it.
album art deserves to be displayed. I mean, look at that. I mean, mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm,
Oh, the
you know,
humanity.
I mean, it's not the size. Well, maybe it is. The Big Zeppelin. I mean, that is a cool album.
It really is. Yeah.
Um, quickly, you're talking about Bruce Springsteen, right? And I'm going to show you this really, really quick because we're going to get to this later in the show. So I want to show you this really quick. Okay, look at that. Those are Ticketmaster tickets to see the boss,
Right.
right? Tickets going between $1,349 to $2,455 a seat.
Wow. Wow.
Now, that's dynamic ticket pricing. We're going to get into that and talk about that because
Yeah.
somebody um, somebody is really gouging somebody,
Yeah.
and it's the people that love the artist and want to go to the show.
Yeah.
Stop
Well,
the
there's a
gouging.
whole bunch of people involved in those high prices, including the artist, right? Including
Yeah,
Springsteen.
yeah, and we'll,
Springsteen's
we'll
not without fault here.
oh no, we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about it a little bit some more. They don't call him the
Yeah.
boss for nothing, man. He runs
Right.
that like a business.
Sure, he does. Now he used to, like you said, we'll talk about it later. But he used to run his ticket prices a little bit lower than everyone else's.
Yeah, because he was
Even
supposed to be
just a
the
few
working
years ago.
man's. Yeah, he's supposed to
That's
be
right.
the working man's guy, right?
Yes. Yeah. But now I know that he's thinking this might be like this could very well be our last tour. And so we're going to go out
Yeah.
and we're going to make a lot of money doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. We'll talk about it later. But there's just a whole lot of things that come to mind when you look at that kind of stuff happening. And the only reason that these people can do this, right, is
Mhm.
because you and I went out and bought these.
That's right.
The only reason that these artists can do this today to us and exploit us is because we bought these back in the day. So who owns who, bitch? Come on,
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah.
Where are you for your fans who've been there supporting you for 40 years or however long you've been out there,
Yeah.
right? Give something back to your fans because they're the only reason that you've been there 40 years later.
Yeah.
Right? How many Kiss fans introduced their kids and their grandchildren to Kiss?
Right. Right.
Right?
And those last tickets, I think you and I talked about the prices of those uh, Madison Square Garden. Those last two dates, Madison
Yeah.
Square Gardens. The tickets are through the roof, right? Thousands and thousands of
My
dollars.
my kids have listened to Kiss over the years. My kids have been to Kiss shows.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just part of your history you want to share with your children or you want to share with somebody else. They've got like 3-4 generations there of fans going forward. I mean, Gene and the boys could quit playing. They could find really, really good musical doubles and keep that band going.
I think they will.
Uh, I'd be interested in seeing what happens.
Yeah, I think they will. They've talked about that. They said anybody can wear these outfits.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and look at those guys. Is it Destroyer from Toronto?
yeah,
They're a Kiss tribute band,
right.
and I think now there's two different ones that I don't want to say, but there's a guy. His name's Spiro, and he looks just like Gene Simmons. And when Kiss used to play in Toronto, they would give him free run to go through the venue dressed as Simmons.
Oh, I've seen that guy. I know
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
who
yeah,
you
yeah,
mean.
yeah, yeah. And he plays
Yes.
in a Kiss tribute band, and he looks just like Gene.
He looks exactly like him. Yeah.
In fact, there's a rumor that he posed for some of the Axe promotion for Gene Simmons' Axe bass.
That's great.
And and
That's
and
great.
and 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 you know how Simmons thinks, right? He's a businessman through and through. I mean, he's a performer, he's a musician, but he's a businessman through and through. And I wouldn't put it past him to have taken Spiro, I think that's the fellow's name,
Right.
and put him to pose for Gene for some promo shit to see if people
Yeah.
could tell the difference. Because if they can't tell the difference, guess what?
Yeah.
Kiss could go on in infamy.
That's right.
And I wouldn't put it past Simmons and Stanley to go, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. Do you remember when they came out with the Kiss casket? You
Yeah.
right. And I remember so many people saying that is a ridiculous idea, and I thought to myself, I really like that idea.
Some people bought it. Some people bought it, man. I can't
If
believe it.
yeah, if they were
People
ever
bought
gonna
it.
put me in the ground, which I don't think I'm gonna have them do, but if they're ever gonna put me in the ground, I'd wanna be in a Kiss frickin' casket. I think that's so funny.
Oh, man.
Alright, let's talk about vinyl, buddy.
Yes,
Okay.
vinyl.
So so just 3 I just did a very quick bit of research today about bands that are re-releasing some of their things on vinyl. The Scorpions have announced they're releasing Colors of Rock, the reissue of 12 albums highlight of the by the German band now appearing on colored vinyl, okay? Britney Spears, 9 albums from her back catalog on colored vinyl this April and May. Tom Waits, a 50th anniversary vinyl reissue of his debut album Closing Time. And that album celebrated its 50th anniversary this past Monday. Okay. So all in all, albums are obviously less popular than they were in the past, but for people buying a whole album's worth of music, vinyl is where people are going, right? Because they're not buying albums anywhere else other than in vinyl. Obviously used to be CDs and they're really not buying them online all that much. And this is really interesting. Even young people are getting into vinyl. In fact, in an era where artists have trouble selling 1 million copies of any album, Taylor Swift sold 1 million copies of her last album, Midnights, 1 million on vinyl alone. And that
Right.
is stunning. And she did that in a hurry. Okay. Um, by the way, the Beatles, who last recorded an album more than 50 years ago, sold 500,000 vinyl albums last year alone. 500,000. Okay.
And they haven't been together for how many years?
Well, yeah. Other than that brief, reunion in the 90s,
Right.
they hadn't been together since what 1970, right? Um, but here's the when I'm talking about young people, the most curious part of this whole phenomenon is another piece of data which says 50% of vinyl buyers do not own turntables. Okay, so
Okay.
the number one reason why people say they like vinyl is they like physically owning the music and
Yep.
having physical records to look at, right? Artwork and it's a tactile experience. It's a multi-sensory experience when you can hear it and hold it in your hands at the same time. And then, the reason number 5 in that whole big list of reasons is I want to support my favorite artist by buying their albums, right? So they do it almost as a piece of merch
Listen,
as much as
as a
anything.
young as a young kid,
Yeah.
wouldn't you want to buy that album just by the look of the artwork itself,
Yes.
just to
But
find
more,
out what's in there?
yeah, but even more than that album, I want the one on your shirt.
Yeah, this one right here that's been like completely remastered,
Oh,
completely
look at that.
remastered. Yeah, it's not even opened. It's still in shrink wrap.
Okay.
Now I've got one open. I have
Yeah,
one open. I
yeah.
got two of these, and my kids got me this one a couple of Christmases ago.
And you okay? Well, like,
It's
do
on
your
180.
co-hosts like Ted? I have a question. Do your co-hosts get a parting gift for being on this show? Because if so, I have an idea.
Yeah. Listen, I had a huge vinyl collection years ago, and I let it go.
Me too.
I mean, I'm talking huge. I had like 1,500 albums.
Yeah, yeah. I probably had like 500-600 albums, and I don't know if I have 100 now. Well, I probably have 150 now. It's starting to grow again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as is mine. There's some cool thing about what you're talking about is that there are also mom and pop record shops that are popping up in huge numbers.
Yes.
There's one just west of me, about 30 maybe minutes west of me in Strathroy,
Right.
and it's a couple that renovated their double car garage and turned it into a record store.
Right.
And they have all titles in there. Like they get really good quality, and it's a lot of it's used vinyl.
Yeah, I just discovered a vinyl store in Coburg, Ontario called Zap Records, and I
Okay.
bought a bunch of T-shirts, T-shirts that I mostly bought to wear on this show, but you can never tell. I'm too short. um, but anyway, yeah, I bought them for to wear on this show, but I've also bought a bunch of albums from them. They're amazing.
Yeah, your computer just like did this major glitch, and you dropped frames for like 30 seconds. Hopefully it picks up. It picks up. It was really weird. I had you frozen there for a minute. I was mesmerized because you were talking, but your mouth wasn't. That's right. You're talking, and your mouth wasn't moving.
You know why that was?
Oh,
I've just figured out why. Because as you were talking about your record store there, I went to my phone and started looking up the place, the record store that I go to, and it tied up the bandwidth for a bit. Isn't that funny?
oh, there you
Yeah,
go. Anything that whacks on your bandwidth can really mess things up really
yeah.
quick. Eh?
I
It's
want to show
crazy.
you a. I want to show you an album collection that I got a few months ago, and I got it right from the artists. Okay,
Mm.
so this is
Bachman. Oh, Bachman Cummings.
okay.
The
Look
whole
how thick.
collection.
Look how thick this is.
How many albums are in there?
It's there's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So there's the first five Guess Who albums, and then there's one album worth of BTO songs, and one album worth of Burton Cummings solo hits.
Oh
And so
wow.
it's seven. It's extremely heavy, and the vinyl is very, very heavy. It's 180
Probably
gram vinyl.
yeah, that's about the heaviest you can get is
Yeah,
180 gram, yeah.
and the sound is amazing. The sound is amazing. So I got it from these. I got it from the guys because I interviewed them. I interviewed them in 2020 to promote American Woman, the 50th anniversary, and then I
Right.
interviewed Randy the next year when they were going to go on tour. And then so
Okay.
I got this. I got this as as a thank you from them for doing all that for them.
Well, I have a really vintage Yamaha system that sits back here on an old piano.
Right?
And it's 40 watts a side, and it has Yamaha natural source speakers and a dual turntable. And man, I'm telling you, vinyl there, you just listen to it, and it's just got that warmth to it.
Yes. Yeah. I don't
Especially
always
it
think that vinyl sounds better than like a WAV file or really good digital sound. I don't always think it does. I sometimes I can't tell the difference, and maybe my ears, maybe I don't have the nuance to be able to figure that out.
part of
But
it's in part of it's the mastering.
yes,
And they're
part of
all
it's the
mouth.
vinyl too, because the
Well,
vinyl in the
there's
'70s was shit.
yeah, and there's the thing is that they've gotten better at pressing albums, right?
Hmm.
And the thing is that the albums are that the data that's now on the albums is much greater because all those frequency ranges and those massive wave files that they use for creating those tracks has way more dynamic range in it than the old 2-inch tape,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So you're going to get a better vinyl listening experience of the stuff going forward if it's mastered appropriately for that format.
Right.
Because there's a as I understand it, there's a very specific um process for the way that those tracks get mastered for vinyl.
Right.
Hey, we got Brian Vollmer online checking us out
Yeah.
tonight.
Telling lies too, if I may say so.
He's in Costa Rica.
No, I
He's in
know, but
Costa.
just put up his comment.
What there? You're looking
Yeah,
good
he
in
says
Costa
you're
Rica.
looking good in Costa Rica. No, we're not.
Oh my
There you go.
God.
Hey,
Hey
Brian.
Brian,
Yeah, that's
glad to have you on,
fantastic.
buddy.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's
So
great.
it's an interesting process that they use for that. This particular album, and you notice the shirt matches the album tonight. Did you notice
Yes.
that?
Hmm.
Except this one, it has the prism going downwards. This one has it
Right.
going to the
Yeah.
side,
I like
right?
yours. I like your shirt. That looks awesome.
Yeah, it's
That
kind
looks
of a
awesome.
cool shirt. And anyway, there are three guys that mastered this album.
Right.
So that I mean, and people will say when you're looking for mastering, it's about getting really good ears on your music.
Right.
And I swear that these guys that master, I mean, you guys correct me if you're wrong out there. If there's somebody out there that knows this process, Brian, I know you know the process really well, but it's my understanding that some of these guys that do mastering are pitch perfect.
Like have
Uh,
pitch perfect like hearing or
yeah,
understanding or
yeah,
yeah.
pitch perfect hearing. They can hear all the frequency ranges. They know instinctively what those frequency ranges do,
Right.
right? Of course, they pay attention to, and that's the cool thing about you can do now with mixing and mastering that you could not do with with um um audio tape, right? Is you can actually grab those waveforms and stretch them out a little bit more if you need to
Right.
in in a mastering process. There's a lot of different stuff that you can do. And then the same thing, and the reason why bands when they're playing in a studio, they're playing to a click track, right? If somebody's slightly off the click, they can pull them right into the click because the click is established on the track,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's really easy to correct errors. So those are what they call dubs and overdubs.
Right. Right.
Anyway,
All right. Okay, so let's keep talking a little bit about the vinyl revival. Okay, so when
yes,
it
a
first
vinyl
started,
revival,
it was mostly older titles, right? It was Rumors, Thriller, the various Beatles albums, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin titles. So the vinyl purchases skewed heavily towards rock. But nowadays, most current releases across the genres are available on vinyl. So while most of the top selling vinyl LPs of 2022 were pop and rock. Hip hop was represented by Kendrick Lamar and Tyler the Creator. Uh,
okay.
the overall the overall album chart across all formats also included Latin with Bad Bunny, country with Morgan Wallen, and R&B with The Weeknd. But
Mm,
still, more than half of vinyl sales were rock artists. Now, we're talking about this big vinyl resurgence, but we have to put this in perspective because vinyl album sales account for only 6% of music sales. Okay. So it's
right,
still a very, very small piece of the pie. So why isn't it more? Because I believe that there could be a true vinyl renaissance if the record industry did this properly. And
right,
one way to really screw it up is to do what they're doing now, charging more than $30 an album, right?
right.
Like, so if you want to go out and buy that Pink Floyd album, it's probably closing in a very, especially a really good remaster like what you're holding there.
Yep.
You're probably talking about 35 to 45 bucks, right? Like that's insane. And
Now, okay,
And
no, oh, hang on a second. That's not really insane when you think about what goes into making one of these.
no, it's insane. They
No, it's
don't
not.
have to do anything. They don't have to do. They've got like that remaster. That's great. That's great. But even if you buy a regular like Pink Floyd copy where it hasn't been remastered, but it's pressed on nice vinyl and all that stuff,
Right,
it's
right.
still $30. And there's no way it should be that. That music has been out for more than 50 goddamn years.
Okay, but think about it. Okay, but think about it. It's the cost of pressing. It's the cost of distribution. There's a whole lot of other things that go into that factor. And you got to remember these albums back in the day when they first came out sold for what, $10?
Not even. Not even.
All right, under $10,
Way under $10, right?
seven ninety
We were
nine
buying for
sometimes.
6.99 in the late 70s. So when
But if
that
you
album was out, it was a
but
lot
you got to
less.
be careful in the late '70s. You might have been buying 140-gram vinyl
Sure.
because
I'm just saying
140.
there's no way it should be $40, Ken. No
You know
way.
what? You know what? You better talk to some people in the industry because 40-50 dollars for an album like this is not unheard of.
No, no, I know it's not unheard of, but it's ridiculous. It should not be that much. It should be
Well,
closer, probably it should be closer to $20. That's
okay,
why vinyl went under. That's why
so did
nobody's bought them anymore and they went the way of the dodo bird.
okay, but here's the whole thing. Everything has gone up because of inflation, right? I
Mhm.
mean, a brick of cheese that 2 years ago sold for $4 now sells for $8 plus now,
Okay.
right? So the price of cheese has doubled. Now,
No, I know.
mind you, yeah, I mean,
Let's stick with vinyl here, right?
but I'm just
I
saying,
It's way
inflation
overpriced.
affects it, right?
And
Well,
one of the reasons why
one man's opinion. I don't think so. I would pay $50 for this, no problem.
right, but how many are you gonna buy? Like,
I
what
only need
my
to buy one.
no, I'm saying that by doing vinyl pressings and the whole vinyl industry in a responsible way and also in a business minded way, they
Hmm.
could increase production, lower prices,
Yep.
and then there would be a vinyl resurgence. Then it wouldn't be just 6% of the
Well,
music industry. It
here's
would be a
here
lot more.
here's the troubling part about all this. Okay, the troubling part of this is that say there were 10 tracks on this album, right? 10 tracks today digitally sells for $10.
Right,
That's medium low, that's medium price. High price is $1.29 a track.
right.
But you're still looking at being able to buy that whole album digitally
Yes.
for like $12,
Okay.
right? And that may be a good argument there. If you can buy the thing digitally for $12, why am I paying 50?
Right. So
No.
my question is for everybody watching right now, do you
Yeah.
think that $45 is a reasonable price to pay for an album, even an album that you love?
Interesting.
Truly. And what I mean by that is what's going to make you buy more albums in a year so that albums can become the thing that they once were, a major part of the music industry. And it's not $45 albums, it might be $20 albums. And
Right.
they can do it. They can absolutely do it if they
Here's
want.
a here's an interesting thing about all of that. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, if you can buy the whole thing digitally for a fraction of that price,
Yeah.
then maybe, the vinyl has to come down into that price range somehow, somewhere. Um, Jack White actually, thought about this and he went to all the major record labels and said, you should be opening pressing plants.
That's right. And some of them have started.
Yeah. And I mean, how does this, I mean, the cool thing about vinyl is that vinyl it can be recycled,
Right.
right? I don't know if any of these albums are made out of recycled vinyl or whether it's all new vinyl being
Right.
made.
Right. But they
Um,
don't, the record companies, they're not willing to invest in the infrastructure that they need to make this happen. But
right.
it's almost free money for them, right? Like these albums and these reissues are it's free money. They have to do very very little to make this happen. It's one of the cheapest investments and one of the biggest returns they can get, but they're not doing it right. and it's the same technology that came out almost 70 years ago. It's
Right.
essentially the same technology to make an album. Um, they pay lip service to releasing vinyl, but they often don't back it up by releasing all of an artist's catalog on vinyl. They don't introduce competitive pricing. It's still more of a niche industry, even a luxury item, which is what you and I
Right.
are talking about a little bit, right?
Yep. Yep.
As a
Yep.
fan, sure. As a fan, would I buy a box set of a commemorative box set for Kiss Destroyer or for Dark Side of the Moon? Sure, I would. But for me to spend enough money for it to be meaningful to the record industry, there's just no way. And so they want easy money, so they keep the prices high. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Anyway.
$160. $160. But I'm gonna tell you,
Yeah.
it's all worth it. Look at all the albums in there.
Yeah.
And there's a never before recorded Rush album in that set that's never been released.
Oh, I see. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some really cool stuff that came with this. This is actually
Right.
off the rush.com website.
Right.
And I bought this for our son for Christmas.
Right.
This is Jack's Christmas gift.
Does he play it?
Him and I play Rush out here in the studio together,
Yeah.
and he jams it all the time.
Oh, that's
But
great.
he has not cracked one of these albums yet. So I'm trying to convince him to come out here in the studio and hang with me, and we'll crack a couple of these albums.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's
Because
awesome.
I want to hear them. Because the thing is, here's an interesting thing about kind of what you're talking about. So why could it potentially be more expense this time round? The one thing that's happened since these albums were originally recorded some 40 years ago,
Right.
right, is that technology has come so far ahead to be able to enhance the audio quality without introducing white noise into the recording, that it is sometimes worthwhile to go back and remix and remaster those tracks.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if they have all the original stem tracks, that means they can go back and enhance all of those stem tracks. So if they're looking for a specific sound off the bass that makes it sound more trademark, right? Or a specific sound off the drums, like in a band named Rush, right? You're going to want all those trademark sounds of Getty's growly Rickenbacker bass,
Right.
right? And Neil's drums and Alex's guitar. You're going to want to be able to hear all those nuances.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when they go back and remix and remaster these, they have a whole arsenal of brand new tools that never existed back in the day when they were originally mixed and mastered.
Yeah. Yeah.
So think of how much enhancement they can do to these.
Yeah.
And now, because you're laying down grooves based on digital input instead of analog input, you get more of every single frequency range.
Right. Yeah.
So it's more dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sounds more like it probably did if you actually heard them play it live.
Yeah. I think that's what happens. That's what's happened with the last few Beatles reissues. They've
Yes.
done that. They've gone back to the masters in a way that they were never able to do before, and they've been able to. And it just sounds like you're hearing things you never heard before. And some purists think that we don't need that, but it's kind of more what it sounded like. The new reissues are kind of like what it was sounding like in the studio when the band was hearing it back, right?
There are
Which is awesome.
Helix masters, Helix 2-inch masters that are actually sitting in the University of McMaster.
Oh, I see.
Brian, they've got a whole bunch of Helix memorabilia at the university.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
and they're gathering. They have this. I guess they have a bunch of programs in there where they gather all of this cultural stuff that's part of the Canadian mosaic.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Music, media, all different types of media, art, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I just
cool.
want to say one more thing about vinyl releases, and that is that when an artist as big as Adele or Taylor Swift release albums, they have to give the pressing plants a 6 month head start to print enough copies.
Oh
So
yeah,
that tells you about the bad state of the pressing industry these days, that they need to open more plants to
right,
get it going. And what that does is that has a ripple effect on a whole bunch of other artists who want to release albums but can't get their stuff out until they print out all the Taylor Swift and Adele albums, right?
right.
So you don't want to be caught up in that logjam. And of course, there was supply chain issues, especially in 2021, and even for the sleeves, right? So even for the sleeves, when there was that lumber shortage, there was a problem with getting enough pulp in that for the sleeves.
It also depends on how many different inks they have to do all of the printing on the jackets.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And the artwork, a lot of the artwork now is all shot. It's all shot in digital format,
Right. Hmm.
and then it's put into digital format, and then it's formatted for because we're in the process of doing that right now. Brian's been working with Brent to do the artwork on his solo album.
Right.
And Third Man, we're using Third Man Records in Detroit for the pressing, and a third party maker who's actually making the album. And the album is actually a fold out album. Now it's a single record, but it's a fold out, and it's going to have a bunch of different stuff about Brian's musical career in there.
That's great. It's
Yeah.
too
So
bad.
it,
It's too bad this Brian guy doesn't hear any of this stuff that we're talking about.
he probably does. He might have just jumped on for a little bit and then jumped off. Who knows? He
Yeah.
and I do a show. We try and do a show once a month, and it's a Rock You series, and of course based on their song Rock You.
Oh,
And
awesome.
it's about Brian's life and times in rock and roll. So yeah, go
That's
back and
awesome.
check some of those stories out, man.
I
Some
have. I've
story,
seen some of the. I've seen like a few minutes here, a few minutes there. Of
yeah,
on a Wednesday night, if I'm not doing the show, I'll tune in. There you are talking
yeah.
to Brian sometimes. So I love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
his stories from the road are always crazy. I mean, we've been, I think we're 4 or 5 sessions deep now, and we haven't got past the mid 70s yet
Wow. There you go.
because
Yeah.
we're still talking about early in the band before they wrote their first album, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Anyway, something I wanted to talk about here, really, really quick, as we head towards the last 10 minutes of the show. I wanted to talk a little bit about some more stuff that's going on with these Senate hearings, and I've got a little clip I want
Oh,
to play tonight. It's like
sure.
a less than a 2 minute clip, and remember the young fella that was in the band.
Yeah,
Um,
Lawrence. The band was
yeah,
called Lawrence.
yeah,
Yep.
the band's called Lawrence. So he takes the stage here for a minute. He's being asked by a senator some stuff about their experience working with Ticketmaster and Live Nation. So this is interesting because this is a band, Lawrence, that I wouldn't call them super mainstream at this point, but I
Yeah, they're
would
more. They actually are. They're kind of a quirky pop band.
I think they might even be independent.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
But the cool thing about these guys is that they're playing at Ticketmaster and Live Nation venues, and he shares his experience. So I'm gonna pop this up here.
Okay.
See if I can. I'm gonna enlarge that screen if I can get there. Where the hell is it? There it is. There, and I'm gonna play it for you right now.
You mentioned in your testimony today that when artists like you play a Live Nation venue, you typically are also required to use Ticketmaster and a Live Nation-owned promoter. If that were not the expectation, what would the difference, you think, be for your band and your fans?
Well, if we had the ability to weigh different offers, then we would just be able to see a more apples to apples comparison of what kind of deals we could get in a given venue. But you're correct in saying that, yes, when we pick a given venue, if it's a venue that Live Nation is either the exclusive promoter or the operator or the owner of, no opportunity but to just receive uh, a deal that we have no ability to negotiate from Live Nation. And yes, the tickets have to be ticketed by Ticketmaster. There's it would be great to be able to find out, oh, if it was this ticketing company, it might be a different fee. Or I know Mr. Berchtold saying that the venue sets the fee, which has not been our experience, but ideally we'd be able to see,
Could
if
you-
it was this company, it would be this or whatever.
Say a little bit more about how that has not been your experience.
It's 100% not been our experience. Yeah, there's literally not been a single time in our career when we've played at a Live Nation venue where we had any opportunity to not have Live Nation be the promoter or not have Ticketmaster be the ticketing company.
Have you heard of any other artists who've been able to figure out a way around that? Or do you think that all artists are up against the same wall that you've described of inevitability?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, no one's had a different experience than me. I know at the highest levels of playing like stadiums or arenas, there might be an opportunity to have a certain promoter come in and do that arena, but I don't. That's not my area in terms of.
In time, Mr. Lawrence, in
Yeah,
time.
hopefully.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate you being here. I guess it's acting.
I mean, isn't that very telling? It really tells you about the monopoly that these guys have and the stranglehold that they have in the industry. There's another clip in there. I was trying to find it too, and maybe we'll play it another time. It's about the same length of time. It's about a minute and a half clip where they talk about the whole Live Nation experience, and that Live Nation owns almost all of the smaller venues,
Right.
except the ones that are owned by sports clubs.
Oh, I see.
So like your big arenas, your Scotiabank arenas and all that stuff, different deal, right?
Right. I see.
But they own I think a good majority of all the smaller venues, which this band would have had the experience of working in probably the smaller venues,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, but they're even gouged. And we've talked about this. This is one of the things that bugs me the most is they even have to give Live Nation a cut of their merch, right? Like, and it's a major cut, and also
And
they said like that the band there, the band Lawrence, they said that we sometimes we have to pay $250, and I think it was for 10 towels for the
yeah,
band.
10 hot towels. Hey, yeah,
Right.
and that's
And they have
reflected in these ticket prices.
yeah, and they have no choice. They have no choice in no say in that matter. They're just charged $250.
Now, I can tell you that people that are paying upwards of $2,500 per Springsteen ticket,
Yeah,
that Bruce has got a good slice of that pie.
absolutely he does. Yeah.
You know, um, anyways, I mean, it just kind of goes back, and it rubs me a little bit raw when I think about the fact that the only reason that these bands exist in the first place is because you and I went out and bought these,
That's right.
right?
Right.
And we went to all their concerts,
Right.
and we supported them through the years by going to all their concerts and paying reasonable prices for tickets. Just like you're saying, reasonable prices for vinyl. I say reasonable prices for tickets.
Yep. I'm with you
Right?
there.
I mean, I went last summer with our son Jack, and we saw the Scorpions, and we saw them at Molson. It's with Budweiser Stage now in Toronto, and we were just off the upper bowl in the grass,
Yeah.
and we had a spectacular view from where we were, and we were in the sweet spot for the house sound.
Oh, that's amazing. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you could hear everything just so clear as a bell, man. It was like listening to them on a really great record.
Yeah. Yeah.
So well produced, and
Do you think,
that's
you,
a
do you
great
think
amplifier.
you think in the future your son is going to look back at his childhood and all that heavy metal that you've been feeding him and charge you with child abuse?
I have no idea. I
That's
have
one of
no
the things
idea.
that's one of the things that Tal Bachman said when he first broke out. He said, "My dad used to play me the Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin." He goes, "Doesn't that constitute child abuse?"
Now
When
my
he was
son's
a little kid.
my son's tastes go even beyond mine. I mean, he likes Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah. Yeah.
He likes Dio for his voice, right?
Right.
He said Dio. He said I like Dio on his own, and he,
Yeah.
just like he said I like Ozzy Osbourne with Black Sabbath,
Right. We got a
right?
comment there at the top there, Kenny. Can you put that up?
Which one is it?
Jose, who
Oh,
says
which is
definitely not. I think she's talking my question about is that child abuse?
is that child abuse?
Jose
Definitely,
Jose says definitely not.
definitely not. Yeah, his taste run way beyond mine, and I think he's even become a greater even after the fact a greater Rush fan than me,
Right.
in the sense that he's trying to learn to play a lot of their music
Wow.
on
That's
guitar.
ambitious, man.
Yeah, so I mean, he sits out here and he listens to every lick and listens to it and keeps playing it and keeps trying to repeat it and trying to get the notes right. And man, I'm telling you, he's got all the lead guitar stuff figured out for Passage to Bangkok.
That's great.
Yeah.
I got to say that everybody, when people talk about Rush, they talk about the virtuosity of each band member, but of course, with Geddy being the lead, the front man with the vocals and just being the front man, and Neil Peart being the absolute monster he is. I really think that Alex Lifeson is underrated. And,
Oh,
like,
totally underrated.
underrated, maybe not by Rush fans, but underappreciated in the grand scheme of things. Like, man, that band would not be Rush without him.
Did you see his acceptance speech for the
Yeah,
Rock and
it's
Roll Hall of
ridiculous.
Fame?
It
Blah
was
blah
funny.
blah blah
It
blah
was
blah 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 blah
Yes,
blah
it was
blah.
funny for the first 30 seconds, but it went on for 3 minutes.
Yeah, and you know what? He For the people that are true diehard Rush fans,
Yes.
they would have got the irony of it.
Yeah.
The irony of it was it took them that long to induct him into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
I mean, these guys were rock and roll. These guys were, in my estimation, the pioneers of
Right.
progressive rock,
Yes, for sure.
right? And they just weren't appreciated enough until some lady over in Cleveland started spinning their music.
Rosalie. Was it Rosalie? Is that who you're talking about?
I believe
Or
so.
Cleveland. Oh, sorry?
It was in Cleveland, wasn't it? Yeah, it was in
Oh,
Cleveland.
okay. I thought you meant like CKLW in Windsor. Windsor, Detroit. Yeah.
No, this is a Cleveland radio station that spun Working Man,
Oh, okay.
and
Cool.
it resonated with all the Ford workers, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, we got to scoot. We're at the top of the hour, Tom. Tom, as always, pleasure having you on here. Tom Jokic from the podcast Famous Lost Words. What you got coming up this week?
There's no new episodes for a little while now. That last episode I was telling you about last week,
Yep.
that was with Loverboy, Chuck Berry, and my interview with Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols,
Right on.
which I did in 2018, which I forgot that I had done. And so that one is still up on the books. But listen, if you're a hard rock fan, just find Famous Lost Words wherever you listen to podcasts, right? And what you can do is search for your favorite band. Like we've got Motorhead, we've got Bruce from Iron Maiden, we've got Van Halen, we've got we've got Bob Ezrin talking about the making of The Wall. So the producer of Pink Floyd's The Wall, we've got him
Right on.
talking about how hard it was to make that. And then we've got, pop artists, and we've got Beatles, we've got Stones, we've got my interview with Mick Jagger, we've got Christopher's interview with Paul McCartney and George Harrison. So all that kind of stuff, classic stuff, but also new stuff, Taylor Swift,
Right.
and people like that. So it's great fun to do, and I think it's great fun to listen to. And it's called Famous Lost Words, and it's on the iHeartRadio app.
we got a couple of really great shows coming up. Next week, we got a fella named Chris Carr from Iowa.
Yeah.
And Chris has been an independent artist all of his life. He used to run a music store and has made a living off music all of his life.
Oh, that's
So
great.
so he is one of the kind of people that we want to have on the show. And if you have that kind of a story, we want to have you as a guest on our show. That's right. You can email me at you can just email me at indietunes.com. INDIETUNZ@gmail.com.
Right.
You can email me there, and we'll talk about having you on the show.
Put up that one.
So,
Put up the one comment there. Great show, guys. I want to see
that
that
one
one.
there. There you go.
Oh, I know her. I know her. She doesn't know what she's talking about. The low bar.
There's a low bar. There is a low bar set here, definitely. And on the April 19th, we have another artist, independent artist. Her name is Madison Galloway. And Madison on Facebook has 9.7 thousand followers.
Wow.
And Madison does a live stream every Sunday, plays her guitar and sings her heart out for her fans. And I think she makes a pretty decent little bit of money off her live shows.
That's great. Now,
She-
you posted about her the other day, did you not?
Yeah, and she's going to be on April the 19th. And you can look up on the left side of the screen up above my head here. We have a virtual tip jar there. So if you support what we're doing, you can tip us in the tip jar. It's a virtual tip jar, and that money goes to just about everything that we do to support independent artists. So feel free to tip us there, because we're not making any money off this show. This
Yeah.
is not, we don't do paid. We'd love to do paid promotions, wouldn't we, Tom?
Oh my God, we would. But right now, have you noticed that there's a bit of a food fight in our chat here?
Oh, is there?
One of our
Groupie.
listeners is calling another one of our listeners a groupie.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
there it is, right there.
I think maybe I know what's going on there.
Oh man,
Jeez.
sibling rival. Is that sibling rivalry?
Not siblings, no, but they appear to have similar last names. Yeah.
Similar last names. Listen, I got to scoot. Pleasure having you on tonight, Tom. And remember,
Thanks,
I'm Kenny. That guy. That's Tom. And we'll see you guys next time on the Indie Show. All right. Keep that
Take care, guys. Bye.
stoic face.